When the idea of moving into a nursing home first entered my mind, it was surrounded by thoughts of comfort, safety, and convenience. The decision wasn't rushed. It came after months of struggling with daily chores, medications, loneliness, and a deep sense of vulnerability that grew each time I forgot to turn off the stove or slipped on the bathroom floor. Friends and family, with the best of intentions, encouraged the move. They assured me it was the right step toward peace of mind and reliable care. And at first, I believed them. The brochures were filled with images of smiling seniors playing cards, chatting on sunlit patios, and engaging in lively activities. It felt like a safe, structured environment that would finally take the weight off my shoulders. But what those glossy pages didn't reveal, and what so many of us don't speak about until it's too late, are the invisible costs, the emotional toll, the subtle losses that slowly shape a deep sense of regret. I'm sharing my story and the stories of others I've met along the way, not to discourage anyone from considering long-term care, but to offer the kind of honest reflection that I wish someone had offered me before I took that step. The first thing that slowly ate away at me after the move was the loss of independence. I didn't notice it right away. In fact, the first few days felt like a vacation. Meals prepared, laundry done, bedsheets changed. But gradually, the reality set in. My life was no longer on my own schedule. Breakfast was served at a fixed time, whether I was hungry or not. Lights out meant exactly that, regardless of whether I was enjoying a movie or writing in my journal. Even small pleasures like making tea the way I liked, or playing my favorite music as loud as I wanted, required some form of approval or fit within someone else's framework. When I lived at home, even with my physical limitations, I still had choices. I chose when to nap, when to watch TV, when to sit outside. That freedom was a lifeline I didn't appreciate until it was gone. In the nursing home, I began to feel like a child again, told what to do and when. It's subtle at first, but over time, you realize that your sense of personal agency is being chipped away, one scheduled activity at a time. The second truth that hit even harder than the loss of independence was the deep, persistent loneliness. Most people assumed that being surrounded by other seniors and staff would eliminate the feeling of isolation. But the truth is, loneliness doesn't always come from being alone. It often comes from not being understood, not being heard, not feeling truly connected. Many of the residents around me were dealing with cognitive decline, hearing problems, or simply a lack of interest in forming new relationships. Conversations were often superficial or repetitive. Staff members, though kind, were always rushing, doing rounds, handling medications, juggling responsibilities. There was rarely time for a real conversation. I missed the spontaneous chats with neighbors, the Sunday phone calls with my old friends, the family visits that were once regular but slowly dwindled to rare appearances. And when they did visit, the sterile environment of the nursing home made everything feel formal, rehearsed, brief. I began to feel invisible, like someone whose best days were behind them and whose voice no longer mattered in the present point. One of the most painful aspects of nursing home life was the way I began to be treated. Not intentionally, perhaps, but undeniably, as more of a case than a person. In the name of efficiency and routine, the care became impersonal. My chart dictated my day more than my preferences did. I understood that the staff had dozens of patients to look after, that they were overworked and underpaid, but understanding didn't make it hurt less. I longed for someone to ask how I was feeling beyond my blood pressure reading. I missed being asked what I wanted for dinner, rather than being handed a tray. I missed the comfort of familiar surroundings, my favorite blanket, the smell of my own kitchen, the sound of birds outside my window. In the nursing home, I felt reduced to my ailments, diabetic, arthritic, a fall risk. I wasn't Mrs. Thompson who loved poetry and gardening and jazz music. I was bed 12B. That loss of identity, that reduction of self, is something no one warns you about. Another harsh reality was financial stress. While some nursing homes offer subsidies or assistance programs, most do not come cheap. My savings, carefully built over a lifetime of work and discipline, began to drain faster than I had expected. The monthly costs, room, board, medications, special care, added up. And yet, despite the high cost, I often questioned the value I was getting. Meals were bland, laundry service delayed, activities repetitive. My children did their best to help, but I could see the strain on their own finances. At times, I felt like a burden. I regretted not exploring more in-home care options when I still had the chance, not researching thoroughly, not asking tougher questions before signing on the dotted line. Financial regret is a heavy burden in old age, especially when it's tied to the feeling that you paid for your own unhappiness. Being cut off from the wider world was another reality I never anticipated fully. When I lived at home, I still felt part of the community. I saw familiar faces at the grocery store. I chatted with the mailman. I watched the seasons change through my own windows. In the nursing home, life shrank. Outings became rare and required advanced coordination. Spontaneity disappeared. Even watching the sunrise from my favorite spot in the house was no longer possible. The days blurred together. I missed the texture of daily life, the smell of rain on pavement, the sound of neighborhood children playing, the satisfaction of completing a small task in my garden. In the nursing home, I was surrounded by beige walls and artificial lighting. My world became artificial too, less vibrant, less real. It felt like life was continuing somewhere else, without me. The disconnection wasn't just physical, it was emotional, spiritual, and profoundly painful. Perhaps the hardest truth of all was the emotional toll of watching those around me decline. In a nursing home, you are constantly surrounded by reminders of mortality. Friends you make disappear overnight, either moved to hospice or gone forever. You witness decline every day, mentally, physically, emotionally. You try not to get too close, not to invest too much in relationships that may not last. And yet, how can you not? These people become your circle, your reality. When they suffer, you suffer. When they pass, it leaves a void. Over time, you begin to grieve in silence, not just for them, but for yourself. You grieve the loss of vitality, of laughter, of possibility. You begin to wonder, is this all that's left? Is there more to come, or just more of the same? I share all of this not out of bitterness, but out of a sincere desire to help others understand what this decision really means. Nursing homes serve a purpose. For some, they are life-saving. For others, they are necessary. But they are not a magical solution, and they are not without cost. There are good facilities out there, with compassionate staff and thoughtful programs. But even the best ones cannot replace the feeling of being home, of being free, of being fully known and respected as the person you are, not just the patient you've become. If I could turn back time, I would have asked more questions. I would have looked into home health services, part-time caregivers, community resources that support aging in place. I would have spoken honestly with my family about my fears, my preferences, my non-negotiables. Most importantly, I would have acknowledged that sometimes the easiest choice isn't always the best one for the soul. Regret is a difficult emotion in old age because we have fewer chances to start over. But sharing regret can be a form of healing for me and for those listening who might still have a choice. If you're considering a move to a nursing home or helping a loved one make that decision, I urge you to pause. Visit multiple places. Stay overnight if you can. Talk to residents, not just staff. Observe not just the cleanliness of the floors, but the joy, or lack of it, on people's faces. Ask about staffing ratios, about meal flexibility, about real social opportunities. Ask about how individuality is preserved, how freedom is supported. And above all, ask yourself, what kind of life do I still want to live, and does this place support that dream? You have more options than you think. Technology, community support, and family collaboration can make aging at home a real possibility. But it requires planning, honesty, and courage. Don't wait until you're too tired or overwhelmed to make the choice that truly honors your dignity. Because in the end, that's what we all want. Not just care, but dignity. Not just safety, but joy. Not just a place to stay, but a place to live. And when we find that, whether in our own homes or elsewhere, we won't have to carry the weight of regret. We will know we made a decision rooted not in fear, but in wisdom. Elderly wisdom.